From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the news blast for this hour. PEP Radio is reporting that the Pennsylvania Coalition of LGBTQ plus organizations will be holding a march and rally at the Capitol in Harrisburg on Sunday, October 26th. We are calling on the LGBTQIA plus community and our allies to join us at the Capitol at 1 p.m. for a march immediately followed by a rally for the four following points. LGBTQ plus rights are human rights. Healthcare is a human right. Healthcare needs to be fully funded, and thus LGBTQ plus rights must be affirmed in the law. Now, more than ever, our healthcare is at risk. Most hospitals that once provided gender-affirming services for people 19 years old and younger have stopped offering such care. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has cut funding for HIV preventative medications and rolled back vaccine prevention options for other illnesses. While we do hope you will come to Harrisburg to show your support for the transgender and gender non-binary youth of Pennsylvania, there is an urgency to this rally and march. State Senator and former GOP candidate for Pennsylvania Governor Doug Mastriano has proposed legislation that would restrict gender-affirming care for people 18 and younger. Mastriano sent a memorandum to his colleagues in which he explains the rationale for his proposal. And it reads, "In the near future, I will introduce legislation to protect minors from irreversible and non-therapeutic sterilization or genital mutilation procedures. Pennsylvania law currently prohibits female genital mutilation, or FGM, and defines certain consent standards for minors under the Minors Consent to Medical Care Act and Act 147. Federal law also bans FGM. However, our statutes do not fully address sterilization or other non-therapeutic genital surgeries outside the narrow FGM context. This legislation will prohibit sterilization or genital mutilation procedures on minors unless medically necessary to treat a disease, injury, or congenital anomaly. It will establish clear documentation and consent standards consistent with existing Pennsylvania law, including medical necessity certification and informed parental consent. Provide civil remedies and criminal penalties similar to those for female genital mutilation under Section 3132. Preserve exceptions for urgent medical care, certain religious practices, and procedures necessary to protect a child's immediate health. Children deserve protection from irreversible procedures that compromise their bodily autonomy and may cause lifelong harm. The legislation closes gaps in current law while preserving physician discretion in urgent medical circumstances. Please join me as a co-sponsor to this essential piece of legislation that will ensure our children will grow up as God intended." For those of you who are even remotely religious, does Doug Mastriano in this memorandum claim to know with 100% certainty what God intends? For those of you without religious conviction, why is Doug Mastriano inserting his personal religious beliefs into Pennsylvania law? What does science say on the matter? Well, according to the Journal of the American Medical Association, what does it say? And how often is gender-affirming surgery performed in the United States on people under the age of 19? Here are the facts. In the U.S., gender-affirming surgery is performed on minors, but it is uncommon. In 2019, there were 2.1 per 100,000 minors aged 15 to 17 years who received gender-affirming surgery, while the rate among minors aged 13 to 14 years was 0.1 per 100,000, and there were 0 procedures among minors aged 12 or younger. Additionally, there were 56 genital surgeries among patients nationwide, ages 13 to 17-year-olds with a prior gender dysphoria diagnosis from 2019 to 2021. Overall, the use of gender-affirming surgery is limited and varies by age and specific procedures. What then are the common treatments and therapy for minors who have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria? Gender-affirming care for minors in the U.S. includes a wide range of treatment options aimed at aligning a child's physical and emotional identity with their gender identity. Treatments can include hormone therapy that involves administering hormones to mimic the secondary sex characteristics of the opposite sex, which can help in the physical transition process. Puberty blockers that are medications used to delay the onset of puberty in children and adolescents who are identified as one gender at birth. And they prevent vocal changes in the growth or lack of facial body hair. For those identified as female at birth, puberty blockers stop menstruation and breast development. Now, talk therapy is usually the first step for treatment of minors with gender dysphoria. How long this therapy lasts depends on several variables, but it typically lasts months or even years before additional therapies, such as puberty blockers or hormone therapy or surgery, are prescribed. The United States Supreme Court already addressed laws like the one proposed by Doug Mastriano in its case from this year, Scrimeti v. United States. The court upheld Tennessee's law despite fierce opposition from every major medical association in the United States. In response to the court's ruling, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. took two steps. He first cut the 988 crisis hotline option 3 for LGBTQ+ youth. Second, he proposed using conversion therapy on minors as their sole treatment option. According to a study published in the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health, among hospitalized young people in the United States, 66% of those with a gender dysphoria diagnosis were admitted for suicide attempts or self-harm in 2019, compared to 5% without gender dysphoria. Furthermore, the rate of suicidal ideation and attempts among LGBTQ youth who have undergone conversion therapy is significantly higher than those who have not. A report by the Williams Institute at UCLA School of Law found that non-transgender LGBT people who experienced conversion therapy were almost twice as likely to think about suicide and attempt suicide compared to their peers who hadn't experienced conversion therapy. The statistic highlights the devastating impact of conversion therapy on mental health and the need for urgent action to protect minors from such harmful practices. If Doug Mastriano's goal is to make more living children dead as his God intends, then he will be the one with blood on his hands should ideations of his proposed legislation ever become law. That's a news blast for this hour. PEP Radio is available on the Live 365 app, the PEP Radio page at paequality.com, Roku, and Alexa. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.